Welcome to the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast with Mike Kincaid and Jake Goebel. Join them as they experience specialty coffee and document their journey. These friends explore roasts and roasting methods, brewing equipment and techniques, and review the cafes they visit along the way.
Thanks, Brioni, and thank you for joining us for episode 52 of the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast. We have home roaster Chris Griffith on the show, who talks about his experience roasting at home with a Nesco, with a popcorn roaster, and with the Huky 500. So if you're interested in hearing about roasting at home, or you roast at home as well, this is a great episode for you. Also, Chris's wife makes cookies and baked goods at home, so we talk a little bit about that as well. This is broken into two episodes, so this is going to be the interview. Episode 53 is where Chris joins us for the regular show. I hope you enjoy it. Let's jump right in. The pressure is on. I'm feeling a lot of intensity. I'm feeling a lot of, just a lot of conflicting emotions, because right now for the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast, episode 52, I am Jake Goebel. I almost said Mike. I'm sitting here across from Mike Kincaid. We've got the video on again, so I'll be describing things that I see sometimes. But on the phone with us right now is the one, is the only, Chris Griffith. What's up, Chris?
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's a huge honor to be here, and hopefully I can provide some useful content.
Oh, man, I know you are. And thank you so much for joining us. The honor is truly ours. So Chris is a Floridian, a native Floridian. Yes, that's from Florida. Oh. He's from Florida, Mike. He is the foundation of the Gator Nation. And I'll get back to that in just a second. But Chris has an incredible coffee story here. He is roasted on a lot of different roasters. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background, and then Chris, just jump in whenever you feel like it there. But basically, he went to school in the University of Florida, the Gators, go Gators, and got his bachelor's degree in microbiology. Got a job in biotech, found it to be a little less fulfilling than he originally anticipated, and went back. What else would you do? Go get a master's degree, right? In computer engineering. So now he's a software engineer at a major company there in Florida. But there's this other side of him that still wants to be kind of artistic and deal with some of the microbiology of coffee roasting. Okay, maybe that's pushing it a little too far. But about 3 years ago, the missus got him a Nesco for Christmas. So for those of you who don't know what a Nesco is, you can count me kind of in that as well. Yeah. But it looks like a coffee maker. It kind of looks like a coffee pot with a little carafe that sits in there. Like a brewer, but it's not. Chris, it's actually a little drum or something like it. It's a glass canister.
Yeah, it's like a glass carafe that has an auger bit that goes through the middle. And so, you
moves the beans. Yeah,
you put your beans in there, and you put it you put it in almost like a coffee pot into a coffee maker. You put it in just right, and then there's an attachment underneath that connects with the auger, and it rotates the auger while it blows hot air through the system.
That sounds like me. Is there a Jake version of it blowing hot air?
They recommend not to use the Jake setting because it'll melt the machine.
A little too much. Gotcha. How long did you use the Nesco?
So when I originally got it, I used it for about 3 or 4 months, and I forgot to order some beans. So I kind of, once you don't have any beans to roast, it took me a while to realize that I need to reorder some beans in order to roast. So I had a small, like a 6 months where I didn't use it. And then I got the urge to start back up again. So I got some more beans, and I started roasting. And about 3 or 4 months after that, the machine died.
Oh, that's not good. But yeah, you got the same type of, in your own coffee journey, you were buying what you said were mega dark roasted beans from Costco, and you were getting a similar flavor profile, or beans that were kind of just as good as what's commercially available on the Nesco.
Exactly. So, and if if I ordered them, it can be a little bit cheaper. So for me, being the dollar cruncher that I am, I'm looking at this as not only is it fun, but I'm also saving a little bit of money. And
Chris, if you don't call yourself a tightwad, we will. It's okay. It's okay. You can call it. It's fine. That's fine.
I want to keep it safe for the kids. I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So after, or let me get back real quick to the Nesco. Where were you ordering your beans from in this initial journey? Was it an overwhelming experience, or what was the process that you went through to kind of be like, well, where am I going to get green beans from? They don't grow around here.
When my wife bought the Nesco, it came with I don't know if she purchased it or if it came with the machine, but it came with some sample coffee from Sweet Marie. And I think my very first order, I reordered from Sweet Marie. It was like a sampler, like I had 4 different types of coffee in it. And then after that, I went to where everyone else buys everything, Amazon, of course. And I bought beans off of Amazon from Guatemala. And that was actually not a bad experience. I mean, I wouldn't order from there today, but for what I was doing, it was fine.
And were you dialing it in, or was it just kind of like there are some preset settings that you could push a button and kind of let it go?
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it now, I kind of laugh because essentially what you do is you choose how much time you want to roast the beans. And it adds in a cool time for however much you put. So you don't really worry about the cool time. All you do is you say, how long do you want to roast the beans? That's it. The number of minutes. So me being the dark roast drinker that I was, I went to the highest that I could put in there. The instruction manual said, we don't recommend you do more than 22 minutes. And so I was roasting my beans for 18 to 22 minutes. With
Perfect.
a 3-minute,
so you did the Jake setting. Full honesty.
With a 3-minute cool down, and I was like, "Oh, this is fantastic!" Of course, things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
So I was doing a back-to-back roast because it only does maybe like 200 grams, and so me being the educated coffee drinker that I was, I would, roast a whole bunch, and then I would grind it up a couple days in advance so that I have enough for the next couple of days without having to grind. But so I would do back-to-back roasts. And one time when I went to go roast it, something happened and that auger stopped turning. There's like a belt underneath that stopped working. And because it wasn't turning, it overheated, and I didn't catch on fire, luckily, but it did. The whole system melted.
But close. Got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, I was going to ask you, would you, in case there's somebody out there listening that might be interested, and go ahead and get the frog out of the room. Yes, my voice. Apologize today, everybody listening, for the frog voice. But Chris, for anyone that might be interested in getting into roasting, just looking, Sweet Maria's does have it for about $150. What are could you break down the simple pros and cons, and would you recommend it if somebody's wanting to just try it out?
Yeah. So the pros are that it is the least expensive consumer product that you can buy. Maybe if you're educated enough to know that you shouldn't roast your beans for 18 to 22 minutes, you can roast them a little bit less, but there's no profile. It's all just you turn it on, they heat up until it's done. So I don't recommend the machine. And if you do, once my machine melted and I did some more searching on it to find out what I could do to fix it or whatever, you find that this is actually a very common problem because of the way the belt turns the auger. The belt gets loose, and then the machines will overheat. So I personally don't recommend it.
Yeah. So it was all downhill from there. So once it broke, you said that you started looking at consumer roasters. in kind of this or pro kind of commercial roasters, kind of the low end ones, kind of the prosumer. Did you look from like some of like the Mill Cities, kind of those ones, like on the $5,000 range, or were you looking at like the Hot Top or the Beam or some of those other ones? What was the next roaster that you were looking at initially?
Sure. So I started, doing the searching, what's out there. And of course, the next level up from the Nesco, they have something called, I think it's the Fresh Roast or the SR 500, which is essentially the same type of roaster, only it's in a smaller package. And people buy this and then they modify it with temperature probes and they try to find ways to actually control the roast other than just on or off. So that didn't appeal to me. The next level above that, you have your Gen Cafe and the Beemore. Again, if you read around, you find that a lot of people don't like the lack of control. And so for the Gen Cafe, most people are happy, just using it for a simple roast. But if you're getting into the Beemore, then people want to be able to control it. So they're modifying the machines, putting in temperature probes and cooling systems. And so I didn't want something that I'm going to have to try to continually modify. And then the next level above that was the Hot Top. And now you're talking $1,000, and people are still modifying it because it doesn't profile the way they want it to, and it only does a small amount at one time. So then the next level above that, of course, is the Huky, and then the next level above that is your North. And there's no way I could justify spending that much money on a roaster at this time just for myself. Right. So in your journey then, after the Nesco kind of took a dump on you, you decided to go with a popcorn roaster, or kind of that air popper type of coffee roasting. Is that right? Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing. I'm doing all this research and I'm like, the models go from $150 to $500 to $800 to $1,000 to $1,200, all the way, and then you start getting into your $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And I'm like, I don't like any of these machines that are less than $1,000. So what am I going to do? So I continued to do researching, and then somehow I found the link where people were talking about using a popcorn roaster. And I was like, on my way home from work that day, I'm going to go and see if I could find one at the Goodwill. So I go and I find one at Goodwill. It was $3. I took it home and I roasted some coffee on it. And I was amazed that, I don't need to spend $500 on a machine to roast coffee. I can use a popcorn roaster, which costs me $3. And it did I think that's pretty legit. Good job. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, I'm feeling what you're saying, because it's like, here's this 800, 500, 1,000, and I still can't make it as adjustable as I would like without having to go through these different hacks. Like, like you said, the temperature probes, cracking the door open, making my own cooler, whatever, my, what is it? What do you got? A cooling tray? Yeah. Making my own cooling tray, sending chaff everywhere that I got to vacuum out of the sky. I might as well, for $3, I can get something that's not customizable, and I can see what I can get out of that. And what was your experience out of that? Was it similar to the Nesco, the type of bean that you were getting, or was it a little lighter roast? And how long were you happy with it? So I did the popcorn roaster for almost a year. But, wow. The first problem with the popcorn roaster is again, it does small batches. So my idea was okay, well, if one of the reasons why it does small batches is because the beans tend to, the air is pushing through and the beans will fly out. So I had my first mod was I created like a chimney using some soup cans so that I can add twice the amount of beans that I normally add. And in the first part of the roast, I have to manually stir it. But then once it gets into the drying phase, they get lighter, of course, and then there's enough air in the system to keep them moving. And so I was able to double my size. That was my first mod. Again, I'm still roasting to second crack because this is how I like my coffee, not knowing any better. So, and I'm satisfied with the flavor, and I'm satisfied with the process. Of course, chaff does go everywhere, and my wife's complaining about that all the time. That my porch is full of chaff, but I try to clean up afterwards. But I'm still a little unhappy about the quantity. So I tried to modify it a little bit more. And the fact that of doing reading, and people are saying that the problem with the popcorn roaster is that it roasts too fast. So my other thing was trying to slow it down so I could figure out, can I make my coffee taste better? So I want to see if I could slow this roast down. So my next mod was I had some blower motors that I got out of these Christmas lawn decorations, where the inflatable decorations. You guys have those out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I had a couple of them. I'm not going to confess to that. I had a couple of those that died, and they have these really nice blower motors in them. And I figured that this might be something that I could do. So I hooked it up so that the blower motor blew through the bottom of the popcorn popper, which increased the amount of airflow through it significantly, which then allowed me to slow the roast down a little bit more. So then, which I ddid notice a little bit better flavor, but again, I'm still roasting the second crack. So what difference is that going to do? I don't know. But I was trying to figure out, is there a way to automate this, or a way to make it better, a way to catch the chaff so it's not going all over the place? So then I started thinking about modifying the popcorn roaster. I wanted to put some temperature probes in there. And are you guys familiar with the Arduino platform?
I'm not. No.
Okay.
No.
It's basically a microcontroller. So a microcontroller means it allows you. It's a little computer chip that allows you to you plug sensors into it, and then plug other things into it, and then you write the code and you upload the code to the chip, and you can tell it to read this temperature sensor, and if it reaches this point, turn this on or turn that off or whatever. So it allows you to control things.
Is that similar to like a Raspberry Pi device, or am I?
Yeah, you're on track. The Raspberry Pi is actually a complete computer system, where this is even has less power than that. It's just a single chip, but you're on the right track. It's about that size. It looks similar because you could plug things into it and you program it to do things for you. So on that sense, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, Mike is good with the programming of computers and things like that. Not.
So I was going down the path of, okay, I'm going to hook up some temperature probes to this thing, and I want to control the roast. I want to be able to set it up so I tell it to, ramp up to this temperature in this amount of time, and I wanted it to, be able to control the airflow and the temperature, and I was on the path of doing all this, and I was like, I really enjoy this roasting thing, and I started considering, maybe I should just buy a decent roaster, and if I can find a way to make some of that money back, either from selling my roasts or gifts for friends and family for the next 5 years, then I think it would be a lot of fun. So that's where I'm at today.
Well, so let me just recap real quick. So you didn't want to spend $1,000 to customize roasts and have to hack devices, but you were willing to spend $3 and a soup can chimney, lawn decoration motors on a popcorn popper led you to the journey from double crack to blueberries to the face.
Don't forget the computer.
And the computer and and uploading computer code. Right. Okay, so I just want to share with you real quick. My journey was kind of a single origin espresso that gave me blueberries to the face. And I was like, wow, coffee can be more than just this black stuff with cream and sugar. It didn't have a soup can chimney, chaff everywhere, or lawn decoration motors with programmable microchips involved. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about that journey, Chris. How did you go? How did this happen? Are you kidding me? How did this happen? How did the popcorn popper with the mega mods end up with blueberries to the face?
Yeah.
How did your coffee journey change at this time?
What inspired you to go down this path?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
So again, I'm using the popcorn popper, and I'm liking the things that I'm doing, but I really wanted to geek out on it and try to control it. But I'm still roasting to second crack. But I'm thinking that if I can control the temperature profile, maybe I can make it taste even better. Then I convinced myself and my wife that it's okay if I spend $1,200 on a Huky, because
Absolutely.
Number one, it's my hobby. Number two, I enjoy it. Number three, like I said, maybe I could sell my roast. Number four, maybe I can make friends and family happy, which is very invaluable, I guess.
Yes, well, you've made us happy and us coffee.
So like you practiced those pros.
Yeah, those lines, those were very well rehearsed, very well delivered. Like did the missus buy off on that, or she was like, mm-hmm?
Not at first, but I think I practiced those lines well enough, and eventually she gave in.
Nice.
So
good honor. So why did you pull the trigger on the Huky? Is it because it's so customizable? I mean, it really is just an incredible roaster that Mike wanted to pull the trigger on. Well, we both wanted to pull the trigger on. We both have a brand crush on the Huky and really appreciate Mr. Lee's customer service. Mm-hmm. So, but why did you end up with the Huky instead of the Hot Top or the Be More, or what played into your decision-making process there?
So this was back in about November is when I really decided I'm going to pull the trigger on this. And at that time, what other options were there in that price range? There was the Huky. There was word of a roaster called the Caldi Fortis 600, but no one had ever really used it, or all I saw were pictures on the internet, but no one really knew much about it. And then there was the Bullet, which was still kind of new, and you heard people saying bad things about it. There was some confusion about whether or not they had a 110 volt version. So anyways, I thought that the Huky would be the least expensive, but yet still have more control than what was out there at that time. So it was a pretty easy decision, I think, because there wasn't anything else out there really to compare it with. Now, I think there's some other options which are going to make it a little bit more difficult to make.
Where are you getting your beans from now? Are you or for the Huky?
So I order most of them through a company called Happy Mug, and I've been pretty happy with that. The Guatemalan that I got off from Amazon was actually not bad. It was a good Guatemalan, and it lasted a long time. Its freshness lasted a long time, so it must have been pretty fresh when I got it to begin with. There's plenty of different places out there to get them from. I do want to go back to my blueberries to the face moment, because I haven't quite gotten there yet. So again, I'm using the popcorn popper. I'm still roasting the second crack, and I've convinced myself that I'm going to get this Huky. And then I was looking at buying a new one, but I couldn't find the exact one that I wanted. I found a used one that was pretty close. So I pulled the trigger on it. I got it. I roasted it. The very first roast, charcoal. I burnt it to all. I didn't know what I was doing. I burnt it. I keep it in a jar as a reminder of what this is. So I don't even know how to describe it. But anyways, the second roast, I roasted it to a final temp of about maybe 410. I do everything in Celsius, but I think it converted to about 410. And the next day I went to work and I drank it and I was just blown away. I was like, I've never tasted anything like this before. It was
What's happening to me?
it was a Brazilian Alta Mogiana, which I got from Happy Mug. And it was so awesome. And it wasn't bitter. It had this beautiful nutty flavors. And ever since then, I've never looked back. I didn't realize that you don't have to roast till it's black to make it taste good. And so that's where I'm at today.
So you had that experience with a roast, and would it be safe to say you didn't really know still at that point what you were doing with the Huky? You weren't
Correct.
dialing in profiles. You weren't, you didn't know which temps to raise it to. You didn't really have much education in way of how to achieve such a wonderful roast, but yet you still had that experience.
Exactly. That's why I couldn't believe it. Someone who doesn't know what he's doing, who still doesn't have control of his machine yet. And the very first roast that he gets out of it, besides the one that's charcoal, it was wonderful. And it took me, I was always chasing that first roast because the beans that Brazil bean, for some reason, it didn't last very long. I had a hard time keeping that flavor. So for the next 4 or 5 roasts, it was really good, and maybe 10 roasts, and then it started to die down after that. And I think it's just because maybe the way I was storing the beans or whatever. But yeah, and so I was thinking that if I could do this good without really knowing what I'm doing, then the machine has a lot to do with how these beans come out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just real quickly want to camp there for a moment because I think there's a good lesson there in, even in my own journey in roasting. So often you feel like I'm not going to be able to produce what I want until I gain the knowledge I need. But you don't want to discredit just getting out there and doing it. Just go for it. Give it, your best shot, learn, make adjustments. And there's something to be said about that kind of self-discovery process that's almost a little bit more magical than somebody coming in and say, like if you had a mentor that showed you exactly what to do from day one. I think you lose a little bit of that wonder and that experience that you're describing. And so I think for anyone that's thinking about should I try it or not, get a popper and just go for it and enjoy the process.
Oh, and a soup can.
Oh, and a soup can. How many soup cans? 2, 3?
It started with 1 and then it turned to 2.
It always starts with 1, Chris. It always starts with 1. And then you're chasing the dragon every time after that.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you are very humble. And when you sent us your coffee, you were very kind of not very good. But the reality is the coffee that you sent us was very, very good. And it was better than coffee that I've spent good money on.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so I really don't think it's the tool. I think it's how you use it, the person using the tool. There's a famous saying amongst martial artists, right? It's not the art, it's the person, using it more so than, the martial art that you learn. And I really, really believe that because I'm very happy with the beans that Mike is roasting on the Be More. And I was very happy with the beans that you sent us coming off the Huky.
Thank you.
But that, Awesome Beans isn't the only thing that you sent us. You sent us crack in a bag, also known as cookies that the missus made. How long has she been making these cookies? Where does it fit into your, kind of your own coffee journey? And I got to tell you, they were incredible.
They're great.
They were just absolutely
not
incredible.
Only the flavor, but their shape.
It was a perfect cactus. And then the little coffee beans,
Yeah.
it tasted like it was different frosting on them.
Yeah.
There were, and just to recap, for maybe some of you have not been following us or whatever, and so you kind of feel like an outsider. Let me bring you in real quick. We've got some pictures on Facebook. There are some posts out there, but Chris sent us kind of an incredible gift pack, and that included 3 different coffees for each of us, and then a whole gang of cookies for each of us. And I can probably say that Mike and my kids got more of the cookies than I did. I had to fight a little bit, but I'm not afraid to fight for my cookies. I mean, look at me. So help us understand kind of the Mrs. journey along with you. How did she get so good? And, where does that fit in?
So the funny thing was, I considered myself more of a baker than my wife in our early, married life. But then when I think it was my son's third birthday, she decided she was going to make some cookies for his birthday, some Wall-E cookies, because he liked the movie Wall-E. And so, she did some research online, and she obviously knew about people who bakers who can make these sugar cookies and decorate them really well. So she tried to do these Wall-E cookies, and I don't remember them, but she was telling me that they just came out absolutely horrible. But it was just good enough that someone else at the party was like, can you do some cookies for me next week? I have a party. So ever since then, that's what she's been doing, for friends and for acquaintances. She'll do cookies, cakes, and cupcakes. And she really enjoys her time that she spends on decorating these cookies. And she does a really good job. I personally am not a sugar cookie fan. So luckily I haven't gained 300 pounds, but everyone that I know of really is always asking for Lon's cookies and wanting to know, is she going to have any for me? Did you guys notice that the coffee bean, the icing for the coffee bean actually had coffee extract in it?
Yes, I did. The little coffee beans tasted like coffee.
That's great.
And the orange cactus tasted like orange cactus.
So she likes to do cakes and cookies, and we had always thought that maybe there would be something for the both of us to do together, but we're still kicking that idea around.
I think it's a great idea.
I love it.
It complements so well.
Yeah, definitely. We get a lot of our friends are definitely always pushing us, egging us on that we should do something.
Yes.
I'm a big fan. Count me as a fan, because I was drinking your coffee and eating cookies and just happy as a clam. Can anybody order cookies? I mean, I don't want to put the Mrs. Business out there, but I'm just wondering, like, let's say I wanted to order, maybe I was having a new Saguaro release party and I wanted to have a bunch of cookies to put in with a bag of coffee or something. Is that something that I mean, are we taking orders online? What are we doing? Or are we just playing?
She doesn't have anything online. She doesn't have anything online. I think, unfortunately, the Florida law would prohibit her from doing so unless she were to have take another step in working out of an inspected kitchen or whatever. So she's not allowed to sell anything online.
Arizona has a home-based baked goods law that allows you to bake things at home and sell them.
Right, but in Florida, you're not allowed to sell them online.
Gotcha.
And the other thing is, shipping cookies is always a problem, because most of the time, some of them are going to break no matter what you do. So and then the cost of shipping, of course, is kind of makes it prohibitive sometimes. But
it goes up. It goes up because it's wrapped in 3 pounds of saran wrap and bubble wrap. Gotcha. Well, perfect. Chris, is there anything you'd like to add about coffee roasting before we kind of carry on with the rest of the show here? And I don't know where we are in time, and we're probably who cares, right? Who cares? Let's just keep rolling. Yeah. Let's just keep rolling with it. I would like to say that I look back at my days with the popcorn popper, and there has never been a time I felt more connected with my beans, because you're watching them as they're changing. I mean, there's no glass in between you and the beans. You're for 15 minutes, you're watching these beans go from,
point A to point B, and you're learning, if you do it enough, you're learning what happens at each stage. And it's an amazing thing, because when you're in a roaster, you can't see any of that stuff. So having that experience ahead of time, I think, helps prepare you for the roaster, because then you can't see it, and all you have are you can see through a little glass, or you can hear and you can smell, but it's not the same. I think it's helpful.
Yeah. That leads me to one more question I'd like to ask you. Do you recommend the Huky for a novice roaster just kind of getting into it? And if yes, what are some of the drawbacks and hurdles that you face that you would caution somebody who's like, well, I think I want to be a roaster, and I kind of want to get my foot in the door and see if it's for me, but I want to be able to scale if I'm successful?
Yeah, so I would not recommend the Huky for someone who wants to use it as a way to scale a business, because for the reason why I love the Huky is it really is a hands-on machine. You've got to be controlling every aspect of it. And even though they say theoretically you can get 4 rows done in an hour, I can't do that. At least maybe I just haven't been doing it long enough. So the point is that it's not good for production, but it is really good for learning the skill of roasting. So you can use it as a stepping stone to something else. And I certainly would recommend it for anyone who just wants to roast for themselves, or for, friends and family, or who just want to learn how to roast and then move on to something else, because it really is great how much control you actually have, how much power you have in your hands to learn all of these different things and to test them out.
Chris, do you have the electric? I think there's an electric and a gas version, correct?
There's only a gas version. There's a propane versus a butane version.
Okay, that's the difference. Which one do you have?
I have the propane.
Okay.
Does chaff still fly everywhere, or does it have a chaff collector? I'm trying to keep you out of trouble with the missus. That's all.
It has a chaff collector, but it's not 100% perfect. So I do still have to do some cleanup afterwards.
Good on you, Chris, for cleaning up afterwards. I mean, that's what we're here for, to try and keep you out of trouble with the missus. That's what we do. So really appreciate Chris Griffith joining us for this episode. Like I said, this is the first part of 2. It's going to be the interview with Chris, and then he joins us for the rest of the show on episode 53. It was just, our conversation went too long for just one podcast. Had to break it in half, make it a little easier on you, make it a little more manageable on you. So one of the things we didn't get into was Chris's hacks for the Huky 500, some of the customizations that he's made. So we'll probably bring him back on, or we'll throw an article out there to hear a little bit more about what he does to get the best out of the Huky. So that concludes the interview portion, and I really appreciate Chris for joining us. Really appreciate you for listening to the Orange Cactus Coffee podcast. As always, show notes at orangecactuscoffee.com/episode 52. We'll catch you in 53.